if you have faith, then you can go through. The attitude of having faith, not about any specific religion or God, but about something that keeps you going with the spirit of hope and joy.
I'm Zsolt Bognar, and this is Living the Creative Life. Our guest today is pianist Maria João Pires.
I wouldn't be able to explain it in words, exactly what means getting connected to music, because one part is very human: study, read the score, be serious, be honest, and try to achieve what we learn. We learn composition, we learn harmony, we learn music history, so we have a lot of information. We have enough information to be able to take all the part that is accessible for us. And the other part, we have to take all the risks to open up.
Is it easy for you to take risks on stage? I know that performing on such a high level comes with a lot of expectations from ourselves as well. During the practice sessions, we're constantly judging ourselves. Can you open up on stage in the capacity of not having to judge yourself?
Have practice as much as you can, be as much sure as you can, but on stage, you have to be able to take all the risks. So not being in control. There's a part of control that you keep because you studied enough to keep this control. It's the body control, the physical control. How you work with your body, how much you know your body, that is your first instrument. So I think it's very important to think we don't play with our hands. And especially brain, hand is something very dangerous, because you know what you want to do, and your hands respond too quickly. So you need the rest of your body to go beyond what you control.
So when you walked onto stage, we all had the impression that you were radiating joy, and you were receiving your public. Was being on stage always a natural place for you, a place of joy?
No. And it's still not. It's a place of, it's a part of it, it's a place of joy, because if I am able to communicate, to be sharing the music with people, and if people respond to that, if I see it as an exchange, if I don't see it as a giving and receiving, I don't like that. And then I get very stressed, you know, because then there are expectations on the other side, and disappointment, you know, because I think if we are not in the exchange and sharing, but in the process of I give and you receive, then it's very unequal. So you have all the responsibility and the people just have to criticize. And that's a very unhealthy relationship. And then perhaps you are not able anymore to be open to what happens beyond what we know.
I'm curious to talk about the dialogue that you have with young musicians, and so we can talk a little bit about why we're here at the Gilmore for your Partitura project. Yesterday, there was this magical recital in which you were joined on stage with the different students. Many of them I have heard in the past and are friends of mine. So I've heard them before, and now I had the impression I've never heard them play more openly, more calmly, and with a clearer forward direction. And these are a lot of the characteristics that I associate with your playing. So my question is, in a short amount of time, in intense days of study, what is your hope that they can get from these days of working together and with working with you?
I think I work on different matters with younger people. I don't like to say students. I don't see them as students. I see them as musicians, people who have the wish to make music like me. So they are equal. So this makes our relationship much easier than if I am a teacher. That's why I don't call it master class or teaching. I call it workshops. We work together. So we work together. I learn with them. They learn with me about experience, you know, experience how to read a score, what about little details of our feelings towards music, towards a phrase, you know, how to phrase, why we cannot learn how to phrase, why we cannot learn it, but we can do it. There's a part of life that we cannot explain. I love science because science always puts this in a free way to us. So when we learn about science research, we see how free they can be. They can start with chaotic ideas, and then they know perhaps they will fail. Perhaps they will not find what they look for. And this fail is the secret. And I think musicians, many times, they have a lot of knowledge, but somehow they don't accept so well the failing. Because our world also became very full of judgment and criticism, you know, and which is good for certain things. In music, we are interpreters. So the interpreter somehow has both sides. He has the side of, I should not damage what is written, but I am there. So I'm present and I can be free. So where are the borders? And that's very important. You have two great musicians and they play the same piece very differently, but both respect the score 100%. How is that possible?
What happens if a student or a young musician comes to you and you feel they have really something special to say, but they're afraid of sharing that special message in front of others, whether it be in a classroom setting or in the concert hall? Do you work with them in a particular way that can be helpful to get them to open up?
The best way to help them is to say, okay, let's search together. And they learn little details and ways how you can get your north. So you have many doubts, especially in phrasing. And nowadays, with the modern pianos, you have to learn also something important, is how to create sound, how to create your sound with your body. And the modern pianos are more difficult for that, because they're constructed for big halls to sound a lot. But you have to make a lot of effort to create your own sound. It's very important because it's part of the truth relation with the piece, with the public, is to have your own voice.
You had great teachers. Did they encourage you to have a voice and to take risks, as you're describing?
Not all of them. One of them, a lot, yes. My first teacher, I didn't have a good relationship with him. I was too young, and I had ideas myself. As a child, I was too young. I was 4 years old. So, you know, you have your own ideas. If you are a temperament, my character was very much solid in this sense. I could express myself. So if you wanted something from me, I didn't stay quiet. I didn't say, yes, okay. I said, no, I don't like that. You know, so it was difficult for me, for him, and for my mother. We created a very conflictuous relationship. And I was with him from 4 to 1748, I started with him. It was a time where a student should obey and should do what the teacher does. But if the teacher is a show-off man, and you are the opposite, you have your own ideas, and you don't want that. So my second teacher was in Germany already, and it was a difficult time. Germany, for me, was really very hard. As a Portuguese young girl, you know, go to Germany, and it was like going to another planet. The third teacher, while I was with Rosl Schmidt in Munich, I was also studying a bit with Kempf. And this was a great experience. Not in the relationship. He was very kind, but I never felt a real connection. And we had a nice lessons. This was at the same time because my teacher, Rosl Schmidt, she was a friend of his, and she brought some students to him sometimes. Then I finished. After that, I had to stop 1 year. I was blocked. I could not find myself. I could not find the way. And I would prefer to say no than to do it and not to feel it, you know.
What kind of repertoire were you playing for him? Was it all kinds, or specifically his repertoire that he was excelling in?
We played a lot of the classics, but not Mozart. I remember when I started recording Mozart much later, I only played one Mozart sonata. So when I was already 28 or something, I had played only one Mozart sonata, can you imagine? Because I think my teacher was not so keen about Mozart. So we did as Beethoven, of course. We did some French music. Of course, I had so many limits because of the hands. I have two small hands, so always problems with the repertoire, the choice. I couldn't play Brahms or Nissim, and I played chamber music, of course, and Schumann. Also, the repertoire quite limited for me. And she had a fantastic way of teaching. She never forced us physically.
But you mentioned Brahms, for example, and this confronting our physical limits. One of my favorite recordings of the Brahms C Major Trio is yours.
Perhaps because Brahms is one of really beloved composers, and if I would have a wish with a fairy, then I would say play Brahms, especially the first concerto. I always thought if my hand grows a little bit, I could play the first. And so many pieces I would love to play from Brahms, you know. But, you know, with age, I learned to accept that the process of playing and listening is so important that we can have the same joy listening to somebody we feel connected.
Is this also a process of self-awareness and self-acceptance?
Our lives is learning, basically, and have joy in learning and have joy in stopping and not being able to do something. That's also joy, because it's like giving it back to others.
Was there a moment where you recognized a confidence in your own voice, that you've maybe found something that if someone were to play for you a recording of yourself, you could say, ah, that's me?
Not really. First of all, I'm not so as confident as I could seem to be. I have also a lot of doubts. But my character makes it that I always try to fight against this part of me that is not confident.
So speaking of another fighter, some years ago I was amazed to listen to your album of the Schubert Impromptus, and I looked and it said, dedicated to Sviatoslav Richter.
Yes.
Who did he represent for you?
You know, like all the great musicians, for me or for everybody, represents a part of us. It's a wish. It's a part of us. He does something like nobody else. His voice. Yeah, we could say the voice he had. I always was very demanding those who really respect the composer and respect a certain truth in the music.
And what about the fact that you have been touring around, and sometimes it will be the same program, sometimes not? How do you keep it fresh for yourself, and perhaps also to ensure across a longer time that you are growing still artistically? Is there a way to do that, or you're just...
Your body language is very important in that process. So how you use your body to remember, and not only your hands and your fingerings. The body has a memory. It's a memory that's probably more important than your mental memory. The mental memory can fail a lot if the body is not involved. In this process, I'm talking about playing the piano. I'm not talking about playing an instrument. But this instrument has a lot of body memory, information, solving problems. So if you have a memory problem with your brain, your body can solve it. There's not enough talking about that. I have this feeling. Because there's not the fault of the teachers, but it's the fault of the system. The student and the teacher have no time. They have to be prepared for what the society is asking from you. I feel very sorry for that circumstances. I think it's a kind of a violence towards the young person. It's a violence. So he has to cope with violence every day. And in music, this is not a good solution.
When I regard your concerts, your recordings, and what you give to people in teaching and in our conversation now, is a spirit of giving, a spirit of generosity, hope, and joy. If we look at the world today, that can be challenging. How do you keep a sense of hope in moving forward?
Because I think it's hope, joy, and especially faith. If you have faith, then you can go through. The attitude of having faith, not about any specific religion or God, but about something that keeps you going with the spirit of hope and joy.
Maria, thank you so much for joining for this conversation. I was truly moved and grateful to hear about your life and your music, and I wish you many, many more years of musical discoveries and hope and joy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.